So what happens after you've actually done an implementation for a CRM? So say if you've been going through a CRM process, you've done the project, you've been trained, it's all been signed off. Now comes the time for actually using it. A lot of the time, what's going to happen is requirements are still going to come through, and the main problem when you actually implement a system is you haven't used it yet, especially obviously for the first time. So a lot of problems can arise after you start using it. Now, things like hypercare do happen, which is essentially a period where the consultancy is still in the picture. But even after that, things are going to arise that you didn't account for. So requirements are going to change. People are going to see the system in a different light. They're going to be putting real data in there with real scenarios. And requirements are going to come and arise, as well as problems. There's going to be stuff that wasn't found during the testing that is going to arise. I'd say typically after around 6 months, this is when you actually start to feel the lack of presence of a consultancy after an implementation. This is probably around a sufficient amount of time for people to use the system, get to grips with it, and understand what's missing. It's also a good amount of time for changes to be made internally that start to build up within the system. So say if somebody receives basic admin training for the system and they start to do little bits, it's potentially after around 6 months that they actually start to see that maybe they weren't implementing things correctly on their own, maybe they were building things that already existed, or maybe they were just doing something that isn't best practice or that they didn't need to do in the first place. So what actually tends to happen after a project has gone live, and say after a few months, is you'll start self-implementing, so either using AI, either using YouTube tutorials, and you'll start building things. And whilst AI and YouTube can tell you how to do them, what it doesn't know is the wider picture. It doesn't know what's in the rest of your in the rest of the software or the system. It doesn't know exactly what the landscape is, and it doesn't know everything about your business. So whilst it might know how to implement a specific requirement or do a specific thing, it won't know if that thing is actually best for you or your system, and it won't know what else it's affecting within your system. There's a lot of scenarios where you'll be implementing something or you'll be building on top of something and you won't be following best practices. So things like documentation, things like remembering everything that has been done before, not knowing whether you're interfering with something else in the system. These are all things that every time you make a decision to implement something, all of these get affected. With this, people naturally forget how to use the system. So as you start to expand the system, the original training that was given starts to be forgotten. The system is a constant evolution, something that's always changing. And training is, if you do it once in a live session or you provide some basic documentation, it soon becomes redundant if it's not maintained. What happens when people stop using the system or stop knowing how to use the system is they stop using it, or they stop using it incorrectly. They find shortcuts, the data quality goes down as a consequence of that. And essentially you are investing in a software and you made all that initial investment and it essentially just goes straight down the drain because you're not using the system, you're not getting good data out of it, and the people aren't using the system. Everyone's going to start complaining, start resenting it, and obviously when all that happens, people stop using it. So most of our customers usually come to us after these 6 months. We find that customers come to us once they have a big a list of requirements come up or a list of problems as a consequence of everything that I've just mentioned. And they essentially want day-to-day ongoing support to not only maintain the system, but also build out their roadmap and make sure that their system is scaling for the future. Now, within these types of projects, there is obviously quite a lot of resolving of problems. So things that have already been implemented and resolving them. But also there's building out the backlog of requirements and making sure that not only does everybody understand how to use the system and is adopting it correctly, but once you have that, actually evolving on the system and providing even more value and giving more reasons to be using the system. So what can actually prevent these things is somebody to actually take care of the system on a day-to-day basis, maintain them, somebody to document everything, and also making sure that the requirements that are being gathered are well documented and they actually serve a purpose, that there's a strong ROI behind all of them.